For nearly 2 decades, Campa Cola was like that old toy you loved as a kid but completely forgot about after growing up. In fact, if you asked most young Indians about Campa Cola before 2022, they would probably stare at you like you were talking about something from a history book. Because for them, the cola world only had a few big names: Coca-Cola, Pepsi, maybe Thumbs Up, and that was it. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, something happened that shocked the entire Indian business world. In 2022, Reliance Industries bought Campa Cola for just 22 crore, about $2.4 million. At that moment, most people didn't take it seriously. Because, let's be honest, who would expect a forgotten soft drink brand to matter in a market ruled by global giants? However, barely 2 years after the acquisition, Campa crossed over 1,000 crore in revenue. Which leads us to the main question of this video. How did a brand that almost nobody under the age of 30 even recognized until recently suddenly become a serious threat to giant companies? To understand how Campa Cola became a brand every Indian once knew and how it slowly vanished while foreign giants took over, you have to look at India itself. You see, in the years after independence, India was deeply cautious about foreign influence. The country had just come out of colonial rule, and there was a strong belief that multinational corporations could easily become a new form of control. So the government tightly regulated foreign businesses. This was the India of licenses, quotas, and state oversight. Meanwhile, Coca-Cola actually entered India very early. In 1949, Coca-Cola was already being bottled and sold in India through an Indian partner named Pure Drinks Group. For decades, Coca-Cola operated in the country, and Indians became familiar with the taste and the idea of cola. However, everything changed in the 1970s when the Indian government passed the Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, known as FARA. This law required foreign companies to reduce their ownership in Indian operations and share sensitive business information. For Coca-Cola, sharing its secret formula and giving up control of its Indian arm was not an option. So, in 1977, Coca-Cola chose to leave India entirely rather than comply. When Coca-Cola exited, it left behind a massive vacuum. There was demand for Coca-Cola, or a close alternative, because people already liked it, and Pure Drinks Group, the same company that had bottled Coca-Cola in India, decided to step in. So, in 1977, Pure Drinks launched Campa Cola as an Indian cola brand. The timing could not have been better. Its branding was familiar on purpose. The name sounded like cola. The bottle shape and presentation reminded people of what they had lost, without copying it outright. To Indian consumers, Campa felt like a continuation, not a replacement. Campa Cola leaned heavily into national pride. Its slogan, "The Great Indian Taste," mattered in an era when supporting Indian products felt like supporting the country itself. This was a time of import substitution, of trusting domestic industry, of believing that India could stand on its own. Distribution helped too. Campa built bottling plants in major cities like Delhi and Mumbai. It expanded steadily, reaching urban centers and smaller towns. It did not need massive advertising budgets because there was no real competition. Availability alone was enough. If you wanted cola, Campa was there. Campa also diversified early. It introduced orange and lemon flavored drinks, which became popular in their own right. These flavors fit Indian taste preferences well, especially in hot climates. For a generation of Indians growing up in the late 1970s and 1980s, Campa Cola was the brand. However, Campa's success was built on a very specific environment which included limited competition, protected markets, and strong nationalist sentiment. One of those conditions changed, the brand was exposed. And the biggest shift came in the early 1990s, when India faced a severe economic crisis and responded by opening up its economy. Foreign investment was welcomed back, trade barriers were lowered, and multinational companies rushed back in. The first major soft drink giant to make a strong move was Pepsi. Pepsi entered India with a strategy Campa was never prepared for. It partnered with local firms, invested heavily in infrastructure, and most importantly, spent aggressively on marketing. Coca-Cola followed soon after. This time, it came back smarter and stronger. Instead of starting from scratch, Coca-Cola bought out India's strongest local competitors, including Thumbs Up, Limca, and Gold Spot from Parle. And almost overnight, Coca-Cola owned brands that Indians already loved. One by one, Campa's weaknesses began to show. Its distribution could not match the reach of Coke and Pepsi, who flooded even remote villages with chilled bottles. Consumer perception shifted as well. As India globalized, foreign brands no longer felt threatening. Drinking Coke or Pepsi became associated with being modern, urban, and connected to the world. There was also a lack of serious reinvestment. Campa remained largely static. It did not build a strong emotional story for the new generation. It relied strongly on nostalgia. But sadly, nostalgia alone can't compete with billion-dollar marketing machines. And by the early 2000s, the brand had almost disappeared from mainstream retail. Then, 2 decades later, Campa Cola came back. And this time, it did not return as a nostalgic experiment. It returned as a calculated business move backed by one of the most powerful companies in India. The revival began in 2022, when Reliance Industries acquired the Campa Cola brand from the original owners, the Pure Drinks Group. The reported purchase price was 22 crore, which is modest by corporate standards, especially considering the scale of what followed. To understand why this mattered, you have to understand who Reliance Industries is. Reliance is India's largest private conglomerate. Built by Dhirubhai Ambani and now led by his son Mukesh Ambani, it operates at a scale few companies in the world can match. By the early 2020s, Reliance was aggressively expanding its consumer product business. The Indian soft drink market was large, still growing, and dominated by 2 global players, Coca-Cola and Pepsi. And Reliance saw an opening because it was price-sensitive and distribution-driven. Campa Cola fit perfectly into this strategy. It was Indian, it carried nostalgia, and most importantly, it could be positioned as a challenger brand without needing years of brand introduction. So, Campa Cola returned alongside Campa Orange and Campa Lemon. This was intentional because Indian consumers have always shown strong preference for citrus-flavored drinks, especially in hot climates. Packaging was another key decision. Reliance kept the Campa name and its Indian identity, but refreshed the design to look bold and modern on shelves. Then, to make it all the more reliable, Reliance priced Campa far below Coca-Cola and Pepsi. A 200 milliliter bottle was sold at around 10 rupees, roughly half the price of comparable products from global brands at the time. This was a strategic decision that shows Reliance was willing to sacrifice margins to gain volume and presence. And in a country like India, where price strongly influences choice, this mattered immediately. However, pricing alone does not win markets. Availability does. Luckily, Reliance knows this all well. Through Reliance Retail, JioMart, and thousands of partner stores, Campa was rolled out at scale. Reliance also timed the rollout carefully. Summer seasons, festival periods, and high consumption months were prioritized. Visibility increased during cricket tournaments and national events. The idea was to be present when people were already drinking more. Within a short period of time, the results became visible. In several parts of the country, Campa captured noticeable shelf space within months, and analysts reported steady growth. With growth comes increased revenue. Within 2 or 3 years after the acquisition, Campa was generating billions of rupees in sales. It became one of the strongest performers in Reliance's consumer products portfolio. As if that wasn't successful enough, they launched Campa Water, pricing it at just 5 rupees for a 250 milliliter bottle. This price is much lower than Bisleri, a brand that has dominated India's packaged water market for nearly 50 years. For some context, Bisleri has been the default answer when Indians ask for bottled water, to the point where people don't even say water bottle anymore. They just say Bisleri, even when the bottle isn't Bisleri at all. This shows you how deeply the brand is stuck in people's habits. Now, for a brand that has been dormant for over 20 years, to challenge Bisleri is truly extraordinary by anyone's standards. So, the next time you stand in a shop and see Campa, Coke, Pepsi, or Bisleri, which one will you buy? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoy simple business stories like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more breakdowns.